بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ما بعد. Today is Sunday and inshallah we'll continue halaqah on Riyadh Saliheen Imam النووي رحمه الله تعالى from the chapter of patience. يقول الإمام النووي رحمه الله تعالى: وعن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما قال: قدم عيينة بن حصن فنزل على ابن أخيه الحر بن قيس رضي الله عنهما، وكان من النفر الذين يدنيهم عمر، وكان القراء أصحاب مجلس عمر ومشاورته كهولا كانوا أو شبانا. فقال عيينة لابن أخيه: يا ابن أخي، لك وجه عند هذا الأمير فاستأذن لي عليه. فاستأذن فأذن له عمر، فلما دخل قال: هي يا ابن الخطاب، فوالله ما تعطينا الجزل ولا تحكم فينا بالعدل. فغضب عمر رضي الله عنه حتى هم أن يوقع به. فقال له الحر: يا أمير المؤمنين، إن الله تعالى قال لنبيه صلى الله عليه وسلم: خذ العفو وأمر بالعرف وأعرض عن الجاهلين، وإن هذا من الجاهلين. والله ما جاوزها عمر حين تلاها، وكان وقافا عند كتاب الله تعالى. This is a slightly long hadith, which is a beautiful story, an interesting story, an incident that happened between Umar radiallahu anhu and another companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The story is, after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away and after Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu passed away, Umar radiallahu anhu was the Khalifa. And his Khilafah, and when he was the Khalifa, he had the longest term of him being a Khalifa. He was a Khalifa for 10 years. And the Muslims really prospered and improved, and the situation for Muslims really prospered under the rule of Umar radiallahu anhu. And Umar radiallahu anhu had created a council, a group of advisories, people who he would consult, people who would advise him, people who were knowledgeable, were wise. They were people close to Umar radiallahu anhu, and Umar radiallahu anhu would have them in this close circle, you could say. And one of them was a person, a Sahabi by the name of Al-Hurr ibn Qais. Al-Hurr ibn Qais was someone who had memorized the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, very wise, very smart, very knowledgeable, mashallah. And he used to be someone close to Umar radiallahu anhu. He had an uncle by the name of Uyayna ibn Hisn. Uyayna radiallahu anhu was a Sahabi, but he was a very aggressive person. He was a Bedouin, he was a leader of his community, and he was a very aggressive person, a very blunt person, and he would not hold his tongue. And even at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ used to give him a lot of money and a lot of wealth to convince him to become a Muslim. Eventually he became a Muslim. And then one day, at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he just entered upon the Prophet ﷺ in his house. He didn't knock, he didn't ask for permission to enter. And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Where's the permission? Aren't you going to ask me for permission to enter in my house?" And he said, "I don't ask people for permission." Meaning, I'm the leader of my community, I'm a big shot. I don't ask people for permission. This was the type of person Uyayna radiallahu anhu was. And later on, he left Islam and then he became a Muslim again. But he was someone who was very aggressive and very, very blunt. And this person was the uncle of Al-Hurr who was close to Umar radiallahu anhu. So when he came and visited Medina, he was staying with his nephew Al-Hurr. And he asked Al-Hurr, "Are you close with the Khalifa? Do you have any connection, relationship with the Khalifa?" And he said, "Yes, I'm pretty close with the Khalifa. I'm on good terms with him." So he said, "Could you, set up a meeting for me to meet the Khalifa? I would like to talk to the Khalifa, and you're someone close. Could you set up a meeting for us?" And he said, "Sure." So he set up a meeting with the Khalifa, with Umar radiallahu anhu, and Uyayna radiallahu anhu, when he comes and he meets Umar radiallahu anhu, he says, "Oh Ibn al-Khattab, oh son of Khattab," very aggressive in talking to the Khalifa. This is the Khalifa of the Muslims. "Oh son of Khattab, you are not fair in distributing the wealth amongst Muslims. You do not give us enough. You do not give us our fair share when you are distributing the wealth." One of the things Umar radiallahu anhu would do is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed the Muslims with a lot of wealth. So he would give out a lot of wealth to the point that there was no poor people at the time of Umar radiallahu anhu. For a certain time, there were no poor people in the Muslim ummah. Everyone Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had blessed with wealth. And then times had changed. There were times where Muslims did suffer, but there were certain times where Muslims were so successful and prosperous that there were no poor people. So he was accusing Umar radiallahu anhu for not giving enough to him, not giving enough money to Uyayna. And Umar radiallahu anhu, we all know who Umar radiallahu anhu is. When you disrespect Umar radiallahu anhu, his responses are not like Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was softer in his approach. Umar radiallahu anhu, when you disrespect him, you will feel the response. You will feel that you have made a mistake. And Umar radiallahu anhu wanted to respond either physically or verbally. He wanted to do something to him. And Al-Hurr, who was the nephew of Uyayna, he stopped Umar radiallahu anhu and he said, listen, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, listen, O Khalifa, look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the Quran. He said, خُذِ الْعَفْوَ وَأْمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. Whenever people give you anything in terms of their akhlaq, they treat you well, they give you their money, they give you gifts, they invite you to their homes, take it with open heart. And whenever it is the opposite, someone ignoramus, someone who is disrespectful, someone who doesn't treat you properly, ignore him. وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. Completely ignore the jahilin. Completely ignore those people who are only there to hurt you, only there to provoke you, only there to instigate something. And as soon as Umar radiallahu anhu heard that ayah, he calmed down. And he didn't do anything, and he ignored Uyayna and whatever he had accused Umar radiallahu anhu for. So this was an interesting incident that took place between Umar radiallahu anhu and this other Sahaba. All of them are brothers for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But human beings are human beings. It occurs in their hearts what naturally occurs for human beings. And we can learn from this hadith is not everyone is going to treat you right. Whether it's in your work, at home, whether you're on the road driving, whether you go to the store, every now and then someone might say something that might be disrespectful, might be something provocative, might be something that instigates you, is trying to provoke a reaction in you. As a Muslim, you're smarter than this. You don't stoop down to their level. You're above this. You can talk as much as you want. You won't get a reaction from me. Because all you want is a reaction, and I don't have the energy or the time to waste on you. Because what will happen, you will say something in response to them, and they will even stoop even lower. They might curse to you. They might curse at you. They might swear at you. They might say something about your family. They might even go to the extent of physically harming you. And some people have nothing to lose. They might take your life, and they have nothing to lose. They have no problem going to prison for life. They have no problem wasting their life. But you have a family. You have people to take care of. There are people waiting for you at home. That person might not have anything to waste or worry about, but you have a lot at stake. And what is the appropriate response? Just to ignore. You take it from one ear and you let it out the other. And that is the prophetic method. The Prophet ﷺ over and over and over again, he was accused. People used to curse at him, people used to swear at him, people used to physically assault him. And the Prophet ﷺ used to ignore these things unless there was a benefit. If there's a benefit in responding, the Prophet ﷺ will respond. But if it was just to get a reaction from the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ never gave them a reaction. If you're driving, someone cuts you off, and you're in a bad mood, you're in a bad day, you're going through something really emotional on that day, and someone cuts you off, you say, Allah forgive you. You go, cut me off again, I don't mind. I'm busy, I'm going home, I have 100 other things to take care of. And that's the attitude a Muslim should have. Also, if you're in a position of leadership, like Umar radiallahu anhu, he's a Khalifa. He can't respond to every instigation. He can't respond to every provocation. Every time someone says something to him, he will respond. How will he continue to be a Khalifa? How will people respect him? So if you're in any position of leadership, you're a teacher, you're a father, you're a husband, you're in a position of leadership, you're leading your household, you're leading your family members, you're leading your children will come up to you and say things that will provoke you, will say things that will instigate you. You are a teacher, your students will come up and say things to you that might upset you. But you can't have a reaction every time they say something to you. If you do, then they will respond, and you will respond, and it will never end. It will get even worse. But if you let it go, hopefully they feel bad, or they ignore and they go on their way, and it doesn't get worse. It doesn't get worse. Umar radiallahu anhu had responded to this person who was known to be very aggressive, who was known to be very blunt in his responses and his words. It would have gone worse for Umar radiallahu anhu. It would have gone worse for him. He would have been sinned for saying something more aggressive to the Khalifa, to Umar radiallahu anhu, and in the end, no one would have won. But Umar radiallahu anhu ignored, and that person went away, and things didn't get worse. We kind of minimize the damage. We control the damage over there. And similarly, as a Muslim, you will be instigated. You will go through certain scenarios and incidents with someone someone might provoke you, أعرض عن الجاهلين. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وإذا خاطبهم الجاهلون قالوا سلاما, Salamu alaikum, and move on. Whether it's a Muslim, whether it's a non-Muslim, whether it's someone at work, whether it's school, you just ignore and you move on. And Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala would say that التغافل هو العافية. When you start ignoring things, you will live very peacefully. Whether it's with your family members, with your neighbors, with people at work, as soon as you start ignoring small things in your life, your life will become very peaceful. And that's something a person should train himself for. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us to be patient, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us to ignore the things that don't matter to us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reunite us in the gardens of Jannah with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions, just the way he gathered us in the beautiful masjid. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.